The champagne bubbles caught the light as I stood in my own living room, surrounded by 40 people celebrating my 40th birthday. Everyone was laughing, dancing, having the time of their lives. Everyone except me. I watched Sophie across the room, my wife of 12 years, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. She kept glancing at the screen, her smile tight and forced. Something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my gut was screaming at me. She'd been distant for weeks, maybe months. Tonight should have been perfect. She'd planned everything herself, insisted on it actually. The decorations, the guest list, the catering. But as I watched her thumb fly across her phone screen, I realized this party wasn't about celebrating me. It was about something else entirely. Then I heard it. Just a whisper, barely audible over the music. Sophie leaned toward the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, and said 5 words that changed everything. After tonight, I'll finally be free. My blood ran cold. Free from what? Free from who? From me? I excused myself from a conversation with my cousin, mumbling something about getting more ice. My hands were shaking as I walked toward the kitchen, but I didn't go inside. Instead, I doubled back through the dining room, staying in the shadows. Sophie was in the hallway now, her back to me, phone still pressed against her ear. Her voice was low, almost tender, a tone I hadn't heard her use with me in months. "I'll tell him after the cake," she whispered. "He won't see it coming. I've been so careful." My heart hammered against my ribs. Tell me what? That she was leaving? That she'd been lying to me? I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing, listening to my wife plot against me in our own home. She laughed softly, that familiar sound now feeling like broken glass in my ears. "Yes, I packed already. It's in my car. After everyone leaves, I'll just say it and go." The phone call ended. She smoothed her dress, checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, and plastered on that fake smile before walking back into the party like nothing happened. The birthday cake appeared 20 minutes later, covered in 40 flickering candles. Everyone gathered around, phones out, ready to capture the moment. They sang "Happy Birthday" while I stood there, frozen, watching Sophie across the table. She was texting someone under the table, her face glowing from the phone screen. I caught a glimpse of the message before she locked the screen. "He's completely clueless. This is almost too easy." My stomach twisted into knots. Who was she texting? The same person she'd called earlier? I blew out the candles while everyone cheered. They asked me to make a wish. I closed my eyes and made one, but it wasn't what anyone would expect. I wished for the strength to handle whatever was coming. I wished for the courage to face the truth. When I opened my eyes, Sophie was smiling at me, not with love or warmth, but with something that looked almost like pity, like she felt sorry for me, like I was already defeated. That's when I made my decision. Whatever she was planning, I wouldn't go down without a fight. There was a man at the party I didn't recognize. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit. He kept catching Sophie's eye across the room. A knowing smirk would pass between them, lasting just a second too long. My friend Jake noticed me staring. "You okay, man?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just wondering who invited that guy." Jake glanced over. "Oh, that's Marcus." Sophie said he's a colleague from her firm. Some kind of consultant. A colleague, right? I watched Marcus lift his glass toward Sophie in a subtle toast. She responded with the smallest nod, her cheeks flushing pink. The way they looked at each other, it wasn't professional. It was intimate, familiar, like they shared secrets nobody else knew. I walked over to Marcus, extending my hand. "Thanks for coming. I'm the birthday boy." His handshake was firm, confident, almost challenging. "Marcus Wellington. Sophie's told me so much about you." The way he said so much felt loaded with meaning. I smiled wider. "Funny, she's never mentioned you at all." His smirk faltered for just a second. "Good. Let him squirm." By midnight, the last guests had finally left. Sophie yawned dramatically, claiming exhaustion. "I'm heading to bed," she announced, already walking toward the stairs. "Great party, wasn't it?" I nodded, watching her go. She didn't kiss me goodnight, didn't even look back. I sat alone in the dark living room, surrounded by empty glasses and crumpled napkins. The gift she'd given me earlier sat on the coffee table, a framed photo of us from our vacation in Hawaii 3 years ago. We looked happy in that picture, tanned, smiling, arms wrapped around each other. But now, staring at it, all I could see was the lie. How long had she been planning this? Had she been unhappy even then, smiling for the camera while secretly wanting out? Picked up her phone. She'd left it charging on the kitchen counter, probably too tired to remember it. Her passcode was our anniversary, or at least it used to be. I tried it. Wrong. I tried my birthday. Wrong again. Then I tried Marcus's name, just the first 4 letters. It unlocked. My hands started shaking again as I opened her messages. The messages went back 6 months. Late-night conversations, secret meetings, plans for a future together. "I can't wait until you're finally free," Marcus had written 2 weeks ago. "Soon," Sophie replied. "I just need to time it right." There were photos too. Them together at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel rooms I'd never seen, smiling and laughing like teenagers in love. One message from last week made my blood boil. "Does he suspect anything?" Marcus asked. "Not at all," Sophie wrote back. "He's too busy with work to notice. This'll be the easiest breakup of my life." I wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, I started taking screenshots. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence. I sent them all to my email, then deleted the sent messages from her phone. She'd never know I'd seen them. Not yet anyway. When I was done, I put her phone back exactly where she'd left it, right down to the charging cable angle. Then I sat back down in the dark and started planning my next move. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. I made coffee, started breakfast, even hummed while cooking her favorite omelet. Sophie came downstairs looking surprised. "You're in a good mood," she observed cautiously. I smiled. "Why wouldn't I be? Yesterday was amazing. You really outdid yourself with that party." She relaxed slightly, pouring herself coffee. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. We ate breakfast together like we had 1,000 times before." I asked about her day, her upcoming projects at work, whether she'd heard back from her sister about Thanksgiving. Normal couple conversation. She seemed almost relieved, like she'd been bracing for something that never came. As she grabbed her purse to leave, I called out, "Hey, Sophie." She turned. "Yeah, you deserve something special too. Maybe next year we'll throw you an unforgettable party. Something you'll remember forever." Her smile faltered for half a second. I saw guilt flash across her face before she buried it. "That's sweet. I'll see you tonight." The door closed behind her. I waited 5 minutes, then called the one person I trusted completely. Nate answered on the second ring. "Happy birthday, old man. How's it feel to be 40? "I need your help," I said. "Not as a friend, as a lawyer." The line went quiet. Nate had been my best friend since college, but he was also one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. He knew what those words meant. "Tell me everything," he said. I spent the next hour laying it all out. The overheard conversation, the messages, Marcus, the evidence I'd gathered. Nate listened without interrupting, his lawyer brain already working through possibilities. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "If she's planning to leave, we need to make sure she doesn't destroy you financially in the process. You own that consulting business. You've built it from nothing over 15 years. He paused. "Has she asked you to sign anything recently?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah, last month. She said it was for tax purposes, something her accountant recommended. I didn't really read it. I just signed." Nate cursed under his breath. "Send me a copy immediately. I'll have it reviewed today." 2 hours later, he called back, furious. "Those documents would have transferred partial ownership of your business to her. After divorce, she'd be entitled to half of everything you've built." I felt sick. Sophie hadn't just been planning to leave me. She'd been systematically setting up to rob me blind. Every "I love you" over the past months had been a lie, a distraction while she positioned herself to take everything I'd worked for. "What do I do?" I asked Nate. "We go to war," he replied. But quietly, she can't know you're onto her until we're ready. Over the next week, Nate helped me undo the damage. We filed paperwork to reverse the ownership changes, claiming I'd signed under false pretenses. We moved money into protected accounts, set up alerts on all joint credit cards, changed passwords on everything that mattered. I did all of this while pretending to be the same oblivious husband Sophie thought I was. I came home with flowers, complimented her cooking, asked about her day with genuine interest. She seemed confused by the attention at first, then almost annoyed, like my affection was inconvenient now that she'd mentally checked out. One evening, she snapped at me for being too clingy. I apologized, retreated to my office, and installed hidden cameras throughout the house while she watched television upstairs. The cameras were tiny, professional grade, invisible unless you knew where to look. One in the living room behind a plant. One in the home office disguised as a pen holder. One by the back door facing the driveway. Within 3 days, the cameras paid for themselves. I was working late at the office when my phone pinged with a motion alert. I opened the app and my heart stopped. Sophie was letting Marcus into our house through the back door, looking around nervously before pulling him inside. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. His hands were all over her immediately, backing her against the kitchen counter where we'd eaten breakfast that morning. I watched for 30 seconds before closing the app. I'd seen enough. The evidence was automatically backed up to a secure cloud server. Time-stamped, dated, impossible to deny. I saved the footage, sent copies to Nate, then sat in my office trying to control my breathing. Part of me wanted to drive home and confront them, but that wasn't the plan. The plan required patience. So I stayed at the office until midnight, giving them plenty of time to finish whatever they were doing. Sophie had been working on me for months, I realized. Little suggestions that seemed innocent at the time now revealed themselves as calculated moves. "We should combine our retirement accounts," she'd said in January. "It's more efficient. Your business could really benefit from my marketing expertise," she'd mentioned in March. "Maybe I should come on as a partner. We should refinance the house while rates are low," she'd suggested in April. "Put it in both our names equally." I'd agreed to some of these things, resisted others based purely on instinct. Now Nate was helping me untangle every financial thread that connected us. He discovered she'd also opened a credit card in my name without telling me, racking up $30,000 in charges I knew nothing about. Furniture I'd never seen. Jewelry I'd never bought her. Romantic dinners at expensive restaurants while I was supposedly working late. "She's been planning this for at least a year," Nate said during one of our strategy sessions. "Maybe longer. This isn't impulsive. It's calculated theft disguised as a marriage." I asked him what our next move should be. He smiled grimly. "We give her exactly what she wants, on our terms." I surprised Sophie with a romantic weekend getaway to a mountain resort. "Just us," I insisted. "No phones, no work, no distractions. Let's reconnect." She looked trapped but couldn't say no without revealing her true feelings. So she packed a bag and pasted on a smile, probably planning how to sneak calls to Marcus when I wasn't looking. The resort was beautiful, all exposed with beams and mountain views. We had dinner by candlelight, took a couple's massage, even went hiking like we used to when we first started dating. And through it all, I played the devoted husband while my phone in my pocket recorded every conversation. Sophie was terrible at hiding her impatience. She kept checking her watch, sighing, finding excuses to step outside for fresh air. One night, I pretended to fall asleep early after dinner. Through barely open eyes, I watched her slip onto the balcony with her phone. Her voice carried through the sliding door. "I miss you too. Just one more day, then we can be together." She paused, listening. "He's trying so hard. It's almost pathetic. Don't worry. After this weekend, I'll tell him everything." I recorded every word. On our last night at the resort, Sophie had too much wine at dinner. Her carefully maintained walls started crumbling. We were walking back to our room when she suddenly laughed, loud and bitter. "You know what's funny?" she said, stumbling slightly. "You'll be fine. You always land on your feet. You'll see soon enough. I stopped walking. What do you mean by that? She froze, realizing what she'd said. Her eyes went wide, trying to calculate how much she'd revealed. Nothing. I just meant, in general. You're resilient. Sophie, are you trying to tell me something? She grabbed my arm, suddenly desperate to seem normal. No, baby. I'm just drunk and rambling. Ignore me, but I saw it in her eyes. She was counting down the days until she could stop pretending. We got back to our room and she immediately went to bed, claiming a headache. I sat on the balcony alone, looking at the stars, thinking about how someone you love can become a complete stranger. The woman I'd married wouldn't have done this, but maybe I'd never really known her at all. Maybe I'd been in love with an illusion. Back home, Nate delivered the compiled evidence in a thick folder. Text messages, call logs, video footage, financial records. Everything we needed to prove not just infidelity, but attempted fraud. This is airtight, he said. We have her on tape bringing another man into your house. We have evidence she tried to steal your business. We have documentation of illegal credit card use. He paused. But here's the question. What do you want? A quiet divorce where she walks away with nothing? Or do you want justice? I thought about that word. Justice. What did that even mean anymore? I'd given Sophie 12 years of my life. I'd built a business that could support both of us. I'd been faithful, present, supportive, and she'd thrown it away for Marcus Wellington and whatever fantasy life she'd built in her head. I want the truth to come out, I finally said. I want everyone who believes her lies to see who she really is. Nate smiled. Then I have an idea, but it's nuclear. Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm listening, I said, and as he laid out his plan, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. I told Sophie I wanted to host a dinner party. A belated birthday celebration, I explained. Something intimate with just family and close friends. You did such an amazing job with the big party. I want to celebrate properly with the people who matter most. She agreed, probably thinking it would be her last obligation before dropping the bomb. She didn't know I'd already sent invitations. To her parents, to my parents, to our closest friends, and to Marcus Wellington, with a carefully worded message about a business opportunity he couldn't refuse. I spent 2 weeks preparing. Not just the food and drinks, but the presentation, the reveal, the moment when everything would change. Nate helped me set up the legal documentation. My brother helped me set up the audiovisual equipment. My sister kept Sophie distracted with wedding planning talk for her own upcoming marriage. Everyone was in position except Sophie. She thought she was in control. She had no idea she was walking into an ambush. The night before the party, she was practically glowing. She thought she was hours away from freedom. I let her believe it. The guest list was perfect. Sophie's parents had flown in from Phoenix, excited to see us. My parents drove up from Boulder. Our mutual friends, the couples we'd vacationed with and celebrated holidays with for years. Everyone who mattered. Everyone who knew us as the perfect couple. And Marcus Wellington, who'd arrived early and kept glancing nervously at Sophie across the room. She looked panicked when she saw him. This wasn't part of her plan. Having her affair partner and her husband in the same room with their families was a nightmare scenario. She pulled me aside in the kitchen. Why is Marcus here? I pretended confusion. Your colleague? You're the one who introduced us at my birthday party. Remember? I ran into him downtown and mentioned this dinner. He said he'd love to come. Her face went pale. You should have asked me first. Why? Is there a problem? I watched her scramble for an excuse. No, of course not. I didn't know you two had become friends. We haven't, I said. Not yet anyway. But the night's young. She looked like she might be sick. Good. Let her squirm. Let her feel a fraction of what I'd felt discovering her betrayal. Dinner was perfect. Sophie barely touched her food, too busy watching Marcus and trying to keep him from saying anything stupid. He kept drinking wine, getting louder, more confident. At one point, he raised his glass toward her in a silent toast. Her mother noticed. That's strange, she whispered to Sophie. Does he always act so familiar? Sophie laughed it off. He's just drunk. You know how consultants are. But I saw the panic in her eyes. She was losing control of the narrative. After dessert, I stood up and tapped my wine glass with a knife. The conversations died down. Everyone turned to look at me. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, I began. This birthday has been, without question, the most eye-opening experience of my life. Sophie's smile was frozen on her face. I've learned so much about the people around me, about loyalty, about honesty. I pulled out my phone. About truth. Her eyes went wide. She knew. Somehow, she knew what was coming. In fact, I've learned things I never imagined about the person I thought I knew best in the world. I looked directly at her. My wife. The room was silent now. You could hear breathing, heartbeats, the world holding its breath. Sophie, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I can't imagine celebrating without you. You've been my partner in everything. She was pale now, gripping the table edge like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Including, I said slowly, in betrayal. Gasps erupted around the room. Phones came out instantly. Her mother stood up. What are you talking about? Let me show you, I said. I connected my phone to the television and pressed play. The screen lit up with footage from our security cameras. Sophie and Marcus in our kitchen, kissing. Sophie on the phone saying, he's completely clueless. Text messages scrolling across the screen, damning conversation after conversation. The recording from the resort. I'll tell him after the cake. He won't see it coming. Sophie's face drained of all color. Turn it off, she whispered. Please, turn it off. But I didn't. I let it play. Every moment, every lie, every betrayal. When it finally ended, the silence was deafening. Her father was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Her mother was crying. My parents looked stunned. Our friends were speechless. Phones still recording every moment. Then the front door opened. We all turned. Marcus Wellington stood in the doorway, arriving late after stepping out for a phone call. He froze when he saw everyone staring. When he saw his face on the television screen, frozen in the moment of kissing my wife. You, Sophie's father said, his voice shaking with rage. He recognized Marcus from the video. We all did. Sophie started crying, makeup running down her face. It's not what it looks like. Her mother laughed bitterly. We just watched 20 minutes of evidence. What exactly are we misunderstanding? Marcus tried to back toward the door, but my brother blocked his exit. I think you should stay, he said quietly. Hear what else is coming. I pulled out 2 envelopes. I walked around the table and placed them in front of Sophie. The first envelope contains divorce papers, I said. Already filed this afternoon. You'll notice I'm asking for exactly nothing from you except to be left alone. She opened it with shaking hands, scanning the documents. The second envelope, I continued, contains evidence of fraud. The documents you had me sign under false pretenses. The credit card you opened in my name. The systematic theft of my business assets. Her lawyer instinct kicked in. You can't prove any of that. Nate stood up from his seat. Actually, we can. Hi, Sophie. Remember me? Sophie's face went even paler. She knew Nate, knew his reputation, knew that if he was involved, everything was documented and legal and airtight. This is entrapment, she tried. This is justice, Nate corrected. Your husband has been more than fair. He's not pressing criminal charges for the credit card fraud, even though he could. He's not suing for emotional damages, even though any court would award them. He's simply ending the marriage and protecting what's his. He placed another folder on the table. Everything's in there. Financial records, security footage, witness statements. If you contest anything, all of this becomes public record. If you sign quietly, we keep it between lawyers. Marcus finally found his voice. Sophie, what is he talking about? What documents? She ignored him, staring at the papers in front of her. My career will be destroyed if this gets out. You should have thought of that before, my mother said coldly. She'd always loved Sophie like a daughter. The betrayal cut her deep. How long? Sophie's mother asked, her voice breaking. How long were you lying to all of us? Sophie didn't answer, couldn't answer. What could she say that would make any of this better? Someone had started recording on their phone. By the next morning, clips of the confrontation had spread across social media. Sophie's face, frozen in shock and guilt, became a local meme. When you realize you're not as clever as you thought, the caption read. The video went viral in our community. Everyone knew. Her law firm received calls. Marcus's wife, who I'd made sure to inform personally beforehand, filed for divorce that same week. Sophie's professional reputation crumbled overnight. Clients requested different attorneys. Colleagues avoided her in hallways. Partners suggested she take an indefinite leave of absence. Marcus lost his consulting contracts. His business partners forced him out. Turns out nobody wants to work with someone known for seducing married women and helping them commit fraud. Through it all, I maintained silent dignity. I didn't gloat on social media, didn't give interviews to local news when they asked, didn't publicly shame Sophie any more than I already had. The evidence spoke for itself. People drew their own conclusions. All I did was tell the truth. And sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon you have. The divorce finalized 3 months later. Sophie contested nothing. She couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming and public exposure had destroyed any leverage she might have had. I kept the house, kept my business entirely, kept my dignity and reputation intact. She moved into a small apartment downtown, forced to start over professionally and personally. Her parents had stopped speaking to her after learning she'd also stolen small amounts from them over the years, loans she'd never intended to repay. Marcus moved to another state, his own divorce finalizing around the same time. I heard through mutual friends that Sophie tried to contact him, but he wanted nothing to do with her. She'd been useful when she had money and connections. Now she was just evidence of his poor judgment. Sometimes I felt bad for her. Not guilty, exactly, but sad that someone I'd loved had destroyed herself so thoroughly. Then I'd remember her voice on that recording. He's completely clueless. This'll be the easiest breakup of my life. And the pity would evaporate. She'd made her choices. Now she lived with them, just like I lived with mine. 6 months after the divorce, I was doing better than I'd expected. The business was thriving, freed from Sophie's subtle sabotage attempts. I'd taken up running again, something I'd abandoned during the marriage. I'd reconnected with old friends, accepted dinner invitations, started saying yes to life again. One evening, a colleague mentioned a support group for men rebuilding after divorce and betrayal. I went mostly out of curiosity, but listening to other men's stories, I realized I had something valuable to offer: perspective, strategy, hope. I started volunteering as a mentor, meeting with guys who were going through what I'd survived, helping them protect themselves legally, reminding them that betrayal doesn't define their worth, teaching them that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so fulfilling that your betrayer becomes irrelevant. One man told me, "You saved my life, man." I was ready to give up everything just to make her stop hurting me. I understood that feeling completely, the desperate desire to make the pain stop, even at your own expense. But pain is temporary. Giving up your future lasts forever. I ran into Sophie once, about 8 months after the divorce. She was at a coffee shop downtown, looking tired. Her designer clothes had been replaced with regular department store wear. Her hair was different, pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of her usual expensive salon style. She saw me and froze, coffee cup halfway to her lips. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she stood up, walked over, and said the last thing I expected. "I'm sorry." I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd lost weight, had dark circles under her eyes, looked smaller somehow, like life had compressed her. "I know it doesn't change anything," she continued quietly, "and I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I understand what I destroyed, what I threw away. I nodded slowly. Okay. That's it? Just okay. What do you want me to say, Sophie? That I forgive you? That we can be friends? I shook my head. I don't hate you, but I don't want you in my life either. You made your choice. Now we both live with it. She wiped her eyes. You seem happy. I am, I realized. Finally. And I walked away, leaving her standing there with her expensive coffee in her department store clothes, alone with the consequences of her choices. 1 year to the day after the birthday party that changed everything, I threw another party. Same house, same time, but everything else was different. Real friends filled the living room, people who'd stood by me through the hardest period of my life. My family, laughing and relaxed without the tension Sophie had always created. Nate and his wife, celebrating their own anniversary. My brother and his new girlfriend. Even my old college roommate who'd driven 6 hours to be there. Someone brought up Sophie, asking if I'd heard she'd moved to another city trying to start over. I shrugged. I hope she figures things out. And I meant it. Not because I forgave her, but because I'd moved past needing revenge. My success wasn't about her failure. It was about me choosing to build something real from the ashes she'd left behind. Later, as people were leaving, Nate pulled me aside. You know what I'm most proud of? He asked. How you handled all of this. You could have been bitter, angry, vengeful. Instead, you were strategic, fair, and ultimately free. I thought about that word. Free. Yeah. I was free. Free from lies. Free from betrayal. Free from the weight of trying to save something that was already dead. Someone once told me, I said, that the best revenge is living well. Turns out they were right. And as I closed the door after the last guest left, standing in my home, surrounded by evidence of a life rebuilt on truth instead of lies, I realized something important. Sophie had tried to destroy me on my birthday. Instead, she'd given me the greatest gift I never knew I needed. A new beginning. The end.